Okay, to make the straps, we're just going to take our strips of fabric. I'm doing 8 inches by 1.5 inches, but we may need to cut those down because I'm just eyeballing it right now. Hopefully there's enough light in here for you to see everything. So I just went ahead and drew a line down the center, and then I'm going to just fold over each side and finger press it to start. But I have my little Cricut, I think it's Cricut, mini iron sitting here. These are really great because they fit right inside your hoop if you use a little pressing pad. I actually have a pattern to make a pressing pad to fit inside your hoop, but I have this small little felt one. And then I'm just gonna finger increase it to start. But like I said, if you don't have fingernails, you can just use your little iron to do this whole bit. I have fingernails, so I'm just using my fingernails. You do have to be careful using fingernails so you don't stretch it. Okay, now that we have it half and half, then I'm just going to fold it in half again. And now I'm going to get my presser, my little Cricut here. And that's all there is to it. So we're going to create a small little band here. I'm going to just double check this side down here that it's still going into the center. Fold it in half again. Because this is so small, you want it to look as even as you can. And if you have like a 1/4 inch gross grain or something, you could use that here. I'm going to use this little clapper I got online. I made the mistake of buying it on Amazon and didn't look very well. It was made in China, and for something like this, I much would have rather supported a local made company. There's a lot of wood makers and stuff out there who are making these things, and I would have rather supported them. The price wasn't much different than if I had bought one, you know, in the U.S. And it's quite possible that these were designed by somebody in the U.S. and they are getting them made in China for cheaper price. Okay, but there we go. That's a nice little strap. So I'm just going to repeat for this side. And this is the Cricut, whatever that is. You can go on the Big Zon store. I probably have a link to it in my growing number of Amazon links at the bottom of the video. I know some people don't like them, but I'm not really doing it to make money. When you do an Amazon affiliate link, you do get sometimes a few pennies off of an item if somebody buys it. You don't, the person buying it doesn't pay more, but they give you it. So if I get a few extra cents out of it, more be it. But really I do it because otherwise, if you don't post where you got it, you're going to have, a lot of comments asking where you got it, which I guess is not a bad thing because that makes your views go up. That plays to the algorithm, but yeah, I don't have, since I work a daytime job, I don't have time to make sure I'm keeping up on all those comments if that were to happen. Okay, so there we go again. So I went ahead and folded it in half, long side to the center. So you could have folded it in half first, like that. But I choose to draw a line. If you don't draw a line, then you fold it in half. Fold each long edge into the center. And again, you could go ahead and use your iron and press it right now if you wanted to put these two pieces to the center. You could press it like this. But this is not going to be, a major bag here, so I'm just doing it all at once. So you just press this, and I'm not really sure the science behind how these little clappers work. I've seen them used in quilting for a long time, and I've always wanted to try one, but it works. Somehow the wood kind of absorbs the heat, and it makes this flap. Let me do the other side so you can see. It makes it like so straight, and it doesn't come apart. So let's do this side without using it. And now it'll probably make a liar out of me. But see how this is nice and crisp, but it's already fallen apart, whereas this side tries to stay together. So it's just interesting science and how the wood pulls it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, because I'm imagining that, like, you know, a lot of my subscribers may not have a sewing machine. Mine's not readily available. Always unplug your devices that produce heat when you're not using them. Don't just turn them off and rely on the auto shut off. Unplug them. It's a fire hazard. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use some of my favorite Fabri-Tac glue and some clips, and I'm going to glue it together. So the reason I'm doing this at the beginning of the video is that way it has time to dry before we get to the point in the pattern where we need to use this. Oh, I just got a little dab of this on my machine. Do not leave that on your surfaces, it will damage them. So I'm just going to put a tiny, as thin of a layer as I can on the edges. It doesn't take much to hold this together. Like that, and then I'm just going to clip it together to hold it until it's all together. Or I'm sorry, all together until it's cured. Simple, simple. And you can actually fold it over and double them up so you don't have to use as many clips. Just fold it in half. It won't glue together. So just like that. I'm going to do the second one, and then I'm going to go ahead and get the hoop ready. I'm trying some new. I think I've tried this before, but it's been a while. I'm going to try this new to me, or renewed to me, Tear Easy, and I'll be right back. Okay. Well, I can tell you right now, this stabilizer, I'm worried it's going to make it or not. It's very, very thin. I think you can not even see my lines here. Can you see that? Okay. So we have pointed out to you, even though it's hard to see. So these are our placement lines for our straps. This line is going to be the placement line for our front, exterior, and lining. Let me get rid of these extra threads here. And then down here, it's just a very tiny little line. They're just a little bit of difference. When we do our front pleats, if you've done the flat bottom bag, girls, we do 3 pleats, 3 folds for the pleat. This time we're going to try and do a back panel. That's been like my most requested change for the flat bottom girl series, so that they can use directional material. So when we fold the pleats, we're going to have it just above that bottom placement line where our final stitch is going to be, so it won't get, in theory, it shouldn't get caught up in it. We're going to find out. My first trial I did of this, it worked great. I don't know where that bag's at, but I tried to do a bottom angled bag, and that didn't look so good. Anyway, so first we're going to go with our straps. So here's all the pieces that we need. Okay, so I'm going to do the applique option that's digitized. So we're going to need 2 exterior panels. Okay, one is going to be a little bit taller. So this one's actually 6x6. This is 6x4 1/4, I think. So this is going to be the front part that we're going to pleat up. And this is going to be risky with this material. It's a little thick for this size bag. Then we're going to need the same size for the back. Or I'm sorry, for the lining. So those are 2. We need 2 linings and 2 fronts. Or 2 exteriors, I should say. And then we're going to need a small scrap for the applique if you choose to do that. Then here's our straps. So I just showed you how we made these. So the glue's all set up now, so I can remove these little clips. And these straps may be a little long. Hopefully they didn't glue together. But I was just guesstimating how long they should be when I designed this. So we're going to find out real quick here. And you may want them longer, or you may want them shorter. So you can make it however the size you want. Okay. Only problem with that is I got a little dent now if I'm doing it that way. That's okay. And then we need our D-ring clip. You could put a lobster clasp right on it if you want instead of a D-ring, so you can hook it to another bag or hook it to your favorite existing bag, which I should have done, and I don't know if I have a small lobster clasp here handy. I might pause and go do that before we get to that step, because that would have made more sense. And that one's 3/4 inch. I have them. I just got my new supply from my punk embroidery, but it's out in the other room. Anyway, I think a lobster clasp makes more sense. So I'm going to find a 1/2 inch lobster clasp and use that instead of the D-ring when we get to that step. So anyway, so that's that. So now we're ready for the straps. So I'm going to start with the first one, and we want these straps are going to go inside the seam allowance. So you want to put the folded edge probably on the outside, or I'm sorry, the inside. So just line these up with the bottom of this line here, and then you fold this one over, make sure it doesn't come, you know, get looped around itself, and then match it up with this one here. So that's what the little straps will be. And I can tell they're a little bit longer than I would like. So I'm going to cut a little bit off of both, maybe make it 6 inches, or I mean 7 inches. So I'm just going to cut about 1 inch off. All right, and then I'm going to get my tape and tape these down. I mean, you just imagine this is your handbag, so that's how long you want it, the strap to be. So again, I want the glued side to face inside the bag. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this down so I can tack it down. This might still be a little too long. Let's see. You want these straps to be the same length in the end, so you need to make sure you're lining them up with the bottom of this. What do you think? That cute enough? I think so. So it's lined up with the bottom of that line there. And then when we do the top, the same thing's going to happen. We're going to line it up to the top of that stitch. Okay, so right now we're going to position that down, and then we're going to run step 2, which is just going to tack that little strap down. Now, be careful, because depending on how your machine moves, it could try to come up here and get stuck in this. So be mindful of that as you're stitching. And if your machine starts to go that way, stop it and prevent it from pulling it up. But we just want to tack this down so it doesn't come loose when we do the next piece. Mine's going that way, so I'm okay. Oops. He yelled at me because I stopped. And this will accommodate a little bit wider strap if you want. I'm doing a 1/2 inch because it seemed to make sense to me. Okay, I'm going to remove this tape now. And now we're going to flip to the back, and we're going to put down our 6x6 lining panel. So our longer lining panel. And you want to face this. Let me draw this line in so it's easier to see on camera. You're going to face this with the bottom placement line that we drew on the color stop 1. And there is a little tick mark to show you the centering, so you can center it up. I'm just going to kind of try and paint that line a little bit so you can see it a little better. Same thing with this one. That way you can see it a little better. Okay, so you're going to take your pretty side, the width side this way in case it's a different size bag. But this is 6x6, so the width is the same. You want the pretty side facing this line. So it's going to kind of go over the top of the hoop. And so you're going to line it up with that placement line. And if you need to make sure it's even, fold it in half, and then mark your your mark right there with that center line. Now, if you have this positioned in your hoop differently than I do, you may need to worry about running into your hoop attachment area. If you do, then just roll the lining panel up loosely, like so, and tape it down so it's not in the stitch path. Now I'm going to hold the hoop like this and flip it over so that I don't get that messed up. Now we're going to take our 6x6 exterior panel, and the same thing, the pretty side is going to face down, and it's going to be centered over that center tick mark, just like that. Then we're going to tape it down. Tape here. I'm trying really hard not to put tape on my new machine because it gets it all dirty and I don't want to dirty it. Okay, so we're going to tape this down. And now we're going to run color stop 3, which is going to tack this down, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's done. So now we're going to do our applique. If you're not doing the applique, then skip these next couple of steps. But we're going to do our applique. So what we're going to do is fold this down and finger crease it. And if you have one of these little pressing tools for vinyl, it's very helpful. So make sure you're against a firm surface, fold this down, and then finger crease or use a tool to press it, the seam up here. We're not going to top stitch yet because we don't want our applique stitch to go through our lining. So we're going to go ahead and do our applique steps, and then we're going to pull the lining down in the back and do the final top stitch up here. So tape this down really good because it's not top stitched down yet, so you might get a little bit of poofiness if it's not pulled really tautly and taped really well. Okay, now I'm going to run step 4, which is the placement for our applique. And it should only just take a second, so let me just do it on camera. And to this point, you can be using a 7511 needle. And I should tape this down right here, but that's okay. It's just a very small little applique. Okay, so there's our little placement line. So now make sure your lining is up since I lifted that. Now take your swatch for your applique, place it down, and this is probably okay not to tape because it's weighty, but you know my motto, if you don't tape it and it starts to move, you're going to throw your finger in there and you're going to get a needle through your finger. So just tape it down. Just a little bit of tape. The tape is a lot cheaper than an emergency room bill to get a needle out of your finger. Not to mention the damage that potentially could do to your machine. I mean, these machines, this one is like, I think brand new, $2,500 to $3,500. I got mine secondhand, so that's expensive. My son is in the background mocking me. I don't know if the microphone picked that up. He's such a stinker, but I'm telling you, there's such a huge difference between 13 and 14, like almost overnight. He went from being just a post-pubescent little boy to like a young man. Y'all have that experience with your children, those of you who are blessed to have children? Okay, so this is a bean stitch, and this gives us a nice place to cut against for trimming our applique. Okay, so that was step 5. So now we're going to get our little applique scissors. I like the kind with the little paddle on the back. Remove the tape. Okay. I don't care if I get the tape on the stand. I just don't want it on my machine. And I find that the more perpendicular to the material that you can keep the scissors, the closer you can get to the cut. In vinyl, some vinyl especially, this is promo vinyl for my punk. This doesn't have the knit kind of backing, so it doesn't usually get too, it works really great for applique. But some vinyl that has the more knitty kind of backing, the fabric-like backing, that will split as the satin stitch is coming, and you'll get fuzzies in your applique. So it's very important to get as close to the bean stitches as you can with that style of, you can see this is just kind of melting away under the scissors because it's such the way the vinyl is made, it's so great. This one just kind of, I'm not even having to snip, it's just the scissor blade is just leaning against it, pushing against it, and cutting it. And I'm not having to worry about cutting into my stitches. But not all vinyl works like this. And there we go. So now I'm going to run step 6, which is the satin stitch. And I actually put some text in mine. So I'm going to run that as well, which is step 7. And I will meet you back here after that. One more thing, actually. This stabilizer is very thin. So I'm going to get some of my backup scraps of poly mesh that I always save to support the satin stitching. I'm going to float that on the back. To float means you just kind of lay it here, and what I actually will do is I'm going to double it over. I will actually tape it down because I've had a few cases where I just floated it and went with tension, and that didn't work, and it ended up coming loose. So just kind of put a little bit of tape there just to hold it while it gets started. Once the stitching starts, then it'll be okay. So I have a double layer because this is really thin. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so we're done with that. Trim these little tails. Okay, that's stitched out nicely. So I'm going to come to the back and remove the extra reinforcement stabilizer I used. And now we're going to fold the lining down on the back. And we're going to lightly finger press it. So remove the tape. And if I didn't already say so, which I don't think I did, make sure you remove the pieces of tape as you go along. When you no longer need it, then remove it. Now this tape this is transport tape by 3M. You can usually get several uses out of each strip. So I've gone ahead and finger pressed that down like that, pull it tautly, and then tape it down. And then we're going to flip over to the front, and we're going to run step 8, which is the top stitching. And then we'll be right back. Okay, now we're getting ready to start our first pleats. So we're going to run step 9. And it's going to create a little mark for us to fold against. I really need like a little stylus. Quick fact. I shouldn't call it a fact. Quick tidbit. I read once somewhere that a lot of the reason why these touch screens go out, like especially if you have an older machine, is because we use our fingers on them, and they're actually not designed to use your finger. So we're putting a lot of pressure on the screen that it wasn't designed for. And they come with a stylus for a reason. You're supposed to use the stylus. So I've been trying to train my brain, retrain myself to use the stylus, because I want this machine to last as long as it possibly can. Okay, so I've gone ahead and ran that step. That was 9. And you see right here, I'm going to have to probably make that a little longer. There's a tiny little leg here. So we're going to fold the lining and the exterior up against that little leg that we just stitched. That's the first pleat marker. And when we fold it up, remember that line I mentioned at the very beginning. There it is. I lost a piece of tape. Remember I mentioned that secondary line? Let me see if you can see it better on the front. When we fold our material up, we want it to be at that second line, not the bottom line. So we're going to fold up against that little pleat marker, and we're going to finger press it, and it should be right above that line. It's kind of hard to see, I'm sorry, but right here. Not this bit. See how it's not laying on the baseline? It's laying on that line right there. Okay, and then we're going to tape it up to hold it in place. I am telling you this, I've been going through my stash of quilting material because I'm purging it, and I'm starting to see how material that I once thought was really good quality really wasn't the best quality. It's kind of scary. I spent so much money on this fabric, and some of it was not as good a quality as other, even though it costs the same amount of money. Okay. Now we're going to fold this one up, and this is going to be a little thicker because it's a thicker material, but again, you want to fold it above that line. And again, you can use your finger, or for vinyl, get this little rolly tool out, and you want it above that line, and you see how it forms a natural stop at that stitch. And now we're going to tape this down on both sides. All right, and now we're going to run step 10, which is our secondary pleat marker. And this is where you need to be careful, because my machine likes to come off this little bend here, and if it tries to come back here, it's going to get stuck. So I keep an eye on it. You can use one of your favorite guiding devices to help. And see, I'm actually gonna put another piece of tape because right here, I'm afraid it's gonna come down and I need that to stay above that line because I don't want this to get caught in the final step. So I'm just gonna fold it up there and I'm gonna put a piece of tape to anchor that piece right here. I can stitch through this tape without any issue. I'm actually gonna pull it up there too. It's trying to, I need to anchor it up here, like this. That's better. Now it's not moving. So I've anchored it here, 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 here. All right, now let's run step 10 to set the other pleat markers. I'll do that on camera because it only takes a second. Okay, I lied. It takes more than a second. You know what I meant. And now here's where I want to watch and make sure it doesn't come across here. It didn't, so I'm okay. But if it did, I would stop it and raise the presser foot in the back. Okay, so now it's going to come over here and get set for the D-ring strap connector. So on the back, let's flip over and we're going to fold it down against that pleat marker. And it should be just enough to cover that pleat and have enough left for your seam allowance. So gently, because you're on the back of the hoop, fold that down. See that? So this is what it looks like now. So you have this tiny little pleat here, this little fold. And then on the front, we're going to do the same thing. Let's take away our anchoring tape. I'll reuse that because these two pieces are exhausted. The suede material does kind of pull it off a little more. And then we're going to fold this down and crease this, but lightly, because you don't want a really strong crease there because you'll see that on the bottom of your bag. And then we're going to tape it down and hold this tape down really well. Okay, now we're going to run step 11, which is right here and right here, but I'm going to stop it so it doesn't go over here because I don't want it to get hooked in here. And I'm going to use the D-ring strap connector here. Well, let me just do it on camera so you can see, because this is an area of pitfall. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to run step 11. It's going to do the left side placement, and I don't want it to get stuck on this, so, or down here. So I just lift it up and my machine still will feed over to the other side. I'll just run that anyway just to show you. There's two, because if you're left-handed, you might want your D-ring strap connector over there. I mean, if you're right-handed and left-handed here. And I don't want to stitch the tack down. I'm going to just fast forward through that. Okay, so here's our placement lines. So there's one here and one here, and you just want to lay your D-ring strap connector so it's at the top of that line. That way, no matter what size you're using. So I did go and find my lobster clasp. Thank you, Grayson, my son. He brought me my box that just came yesterday. And I'm going to tape that down. Now be very careful when you're using something like a lobster clasp, because it's a lot bigger than the D-ring strap connector, obviously. And as your machine's going around, you don't want to risk hitting that. So you need to have enough room. The final stitches are going to be just inside that placement line. You need enough room for your presser foot to get past that stitch line. So keep that in mind as you layer this down. So go ahead and I size it so you can have at least a ½ inch overhang. You want a little bit of overhang because that will go into the seam. So just like that. And now I'll go ahead and stitch this out on camera too, so you can see the same thing. So 12 is going to be the tack down. So it's going to tack down over here on this side first. And then we don't want to hit this. So as soon as you hear the cutting blade or whatever it is on your machine, you don't want to hit this. So I'm going to come back here, and on my machine I can lift it up higher like that. And that way you don't risk hitting that hardware. It's very important that you pay attention to that. Most of my designs I try to digitize so that around the hardware, but I can't always do that. Okay, so that one didn't catch very well. I don't know why. I put it too high up, that's why. So now we're ready to put on our back strap. Okay, So what we want to do is we want to tuck this down out of the way. So kind of fold it down as far as you can, because we're going to cut this open at some point. And I'm going to show you how to do it, even though I'm using tearaway, because if you're not using tearaway, you still need to know how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this down really as tautly as I can out of the way. And this, I'm going to cover up this little thing here, the stop stir clasp, tape it down. And now I'm going to be very careful as my machine's going around because I have all this loosey-goosey. So now this is all taped down, so now we're ready to put our strap here. And this time, the strap's going to be coming inside the bag because this is going to flip to the back. So we don't want it like this. We need it like this so that when we flip it over, it's in the right position. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to line up the end of the strap with this. So inside the line here. And it should overlap this one perfectly. So you're going to line up with the top of that line. This is lined up with the top of this line right there. And then fold it. Oops, I have the wrong side. That's okay, we'll flip it over here. Fold it over. I want the side with the seam facing inwards. Okay, and then fold it over to the other side and make sure it's not twisted. And then line it up there. Again, so you're right at the top of that line. Right there's the top of the line. You're right at the top. And you're on the same side. Make sure you're on the same side as the previous strap. They should be pretty much overlapping. Okay. Now we're going to carefully run step 13, which is going to tack those down. And I'm sorry, these steps are really, really short, so there's no sense in going on and off the camera. Oops. What happened? I don't know what happened there. Okay. It seemed to be fine. The thread, the bobbin came out too. Okay, let's try this again. Now it's going to start to move, so I'm going to be watching it and make sure. See, it would have, right there. Whoops, it would have, no, stop. See how it got caught? So you got to be very mindful of that all the time. I didn't catch it fast enough. Okay, now let's try it. So one thing you could do is take this down and then put some tearaway, scrap tearaway on top of it to help move everything around. But your machine may not do that. That's just how my machine drags and moves around. Your machine may not move that direction. You may not have that issue. Or you might have a machine that actually, you know, has a presser foot that automatically lifts up above the project. Hello, Janome. I love the Janome because the satin stitch is so beautiful on them. But there are a few little things where it's like, come on, who thought of this? Like this door that I still can't get on there correctly. This is a brand new machine. Had 5 hours on it when I bought it. I only used it once and then had to take it in for servicing because something came loose in the shipping. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so now that's all stitched down. So now we're going to flip to the back. And now we're ready to add our last panel. And if you want, I have these cute little tags that I'm always forgetting to put in my bag. I'm going to go ahead and put one in because I'm always forgetting and I want to use them. So this one says, I know, I can't believe I'm handmade either. I bought so many of these and never use them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just line this up so that the text is on top of, oh, I don't want to put it there. Actually, because we're going to put a magnet here later. Actually, this isn't going to be, I'm not going to be able to do it after all. This is just too small of a bag. Unless we want to put it in, we could put it like this. Yeah, why don't we do that? So I'm going to tape it now because otherwise I'll forget. So I'm just overlapping that stitching so that I know where the final stitch is going to be so that you'll still be able to read it. Just for fun. Let me tape that on so it doesn't come loose. Okay. So there's your tag if you want a tag in there. Now get your other lining panel, and here's the original line. Remember we drew it in, and here's the centering line. we're going to line this panel up with that center, you know, divide it in half to make your crease. But in this time, we want to have the panel, I'm doing it backwards. Let's see, this is right? Yes. I'm like losing my mind on my own pattern. So you want to line it up with this. Wait 1 second, I got to double check myself. Bye. Kimberly shouldn't be doing this at night. I'm right. We're going to line it up with this top line here. We're going to stitch it and then we're going to flip it over. Getting too tired. Okay, so again, fold it in half, get your crease mark, and you want to line up. The pretty side is facing down, and you want to line it up with that top line, and then tape it down. And it's sometimes helpful to tape down here at the very bottom too, so it doesn't flip up on you when you're turning the hoop around. So there, it's taped. Now flip it over. And again, we have these straps here, so we want to be really careful when we're stitching and make sure things don't go over it. So the same thing, fold it in half to get your crease mark. Line that crease mark up with the centering mark with the top of that line. And then tape it down. Now normally with these bags, you can't do the top stitching on the exterior back because of how they're constructed with one big piece. But because we're doing this in 2 separate pieces with a separate back, we can go ahead and try and do the top stitching as well. So we're going to run this step 14 and I'll be right back. It did get really thick over here and kind of want to bump out on there. So just be mindful of that, but it's fine for now. So now go flip to the back and we're going to fold the lining up. And we're going to lightly finger crease it. And we're going to tape it down again. And you can see there is barely a line in between there. Barely a line. And in fact, this is when you should probably go ahead and cut that line free as soon as you fold up the exterior so it's out of the way. But we're using tearaway, so it's not as important. But we're going to tape this down. And we barely have a turning line there. So we're going to carefully remove it. So this is why for this particular bag I'm recommending, because it's so small, I'm recommending that you use the tearaway and or wash away, the fabric style wash away. I didn't mention the wash away at the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tape this down as tautly as I can get it. And you can kind of see, it's really hard to get into there because of the lining. So you want to be really careful when you go ahead and cut this loose. So get your seam ripper out. And you want to get it inside there so you're only cutting the stabilizer. So like that. So you can see it. And you just want to cut the stabilizer. And you do it from the lining side so you don't have to worry about the straps in the front. Oh, my tape is there. Hold on. Let me move this tape out of the way. But if you're using the tearaway or the cutaway, I'm sorry, the tearaway or the wash away, then, you know, you don't need to get it all out. You can get the rest out later. Cutaway, or I'm sorry, the wash away is actually the best for this bag. All right, there we go. So now it's open, so now we'll be able to turn our bag. If you forget to do this, you're not going to be able to open your bag. Okay, now I can see my lining came a little loose there, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this a little bit tighter. Finger press it, make sure it's staying snug together. Oh, I think it's okay now. And then we're going to do the top stitching. So make sure that this is positioned back down, because now that it's cut apart, we don't want it to come apart and not top stitch right. So I'm actually going to put a piece of tape. Oops, this came out loose. So see, I want to make sure this stays snug there for the top stitching. So I'm putting a piece of tape there to hold it in place. Okay, now we're going to do the top stitching. Make sure that back didn't come undone. It didn't. So I'm going to run step 15 and I'll be right back. I should have ran that on camera. So when it finished running step 15, it moved down here to start the stitch down here. And when it did that, it could have got stuck in here. So be careful of that opportunity, and, you know, either tape it down really good around here or put some of the tearaway to cover it up. Okay, so now we're going to run the exterior bottom, untack this down. So let's move this tape out of the way. Leave the lining as it is for right now, because we don't want to stitch the lining all the way closed, else we won't be able to turn the bag right side out through the lining. So we're going to leave the lining as it is on the back, fold this down, now fold this down to meet the bottom. Oh. Make sure all your stuff is taped down if you need it to be. Oh, can't get this off. Sorry guys, let me get this tape out. Okay, so all this tape is exhausted because it doesn't last very long on the suede. Okay, so we're gonna, this is trying to come up, so make sure you hold it tight. Now pull this down like this, and then should be enough. This is gonna be a really short, I'll have to update the cutting chart. So this is gonna need to be 6 inches by 6.5 inches. Okay, so I'm gonna pull it as taut as I can, and then I'm gonna tape down the center first. It's going to be very narrow seam allowance. As always, pay attention to the cutting chart, because sometimes I have to make adjustments to the cutting information as I go along. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to run step 16. Make sure your lining is still up over here at the top of the hoop. And you want to make sure you get this, all this bulk underneath here. And when it's done running this step, we don't want it to go back to the center. Well, it's going to get ready to run the lining step. So let's just run this. This is 16. And again, if you're worried about it coming loose, use your favorite device. Do not put your finger in there. Yeah, it just needs another 1/2 inch. So I'll just make it 6 inch by 7 inch because it's harder to tell otherwise. Okay, so there we go. So now we're going to flip to the back side, and now we're going to pull the lining down. And then we're going to, with this step, I'm going to go ahead and remove this tape that's on the very edge. We could have waited till now to add the label. Silly Kimberly. Anyway, I did it because it was on my mind. But now add your label if you want one, and make sure it's just, you don't want tape here because it'll get stuck in the seam. And then pull your lining down. And the same thing, it's going to be a tight fit. My lining should have been a little bit longer. I didn't compensate for the top stitching, I think. Oh, this is going to be really tight. That's okay. We'll make do. Going to have a really tight seam allowance. So, knowing me, I probably already put a little note in the beginning of the video when I was talking about cutting instructions and said, hey, make this 6 inches by 7 inches instead. Because barely going to catch the lining. I'm pulling it as tautly as I can. That'll help. But yeah, it's going to be really tight. Good thing this is just a cute, not really meant to be used. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a pursed angle. Okay, that should be good. So fold that down as tight as you can. And then we're going to run step 17, which is going to tack down our lining and leave an opening to turn it. And then I'll be right back. So now we're ready to run the last two steps, 18 and 19. We're not going to run 20. Boy, did I get that. Just barely enough. It's going to be hard to turn it right side out because I barely had enough in there. So I'll add this. I'm just going to make it 7 inches. We need another 1/2 inch, but we'll do an inch. So that one's all ready to go. So now we're going to run the step to do this side. So it's going to start here. So the most important thing is, again, this, when I went to do the next side over, my machine went up here and then down here. So it would have got stuck here. So I did the little lift, extra lift in the back. So I'm going to stitch here. It's going to be 2 rows of stitches. Then it's going to come over here and do a little travel stitch so it can come up here and start up here. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's going to take a couple of minutes. and it's boring for you to watch, but just be on the mind set that you have all this stuff in here and watch where this presser foot is, because if it gets stuck anywhere, you could break a needle or anything else. I try to plan it so it does this, but you never know what's going to happen. Okay, I'll be right back. Just like that, we're done. Before you unhoop, always turn to the back and make sure nothing crazy happened to your lining. I'm going to move my machine out of the way, and I can use my finger. My machine, I can return that to home base so it's out of my way. Now go ahead and flip to the back and remove all the tape. And if it's something you'll be able to reuse, then, you know, save it to the side. And then do the same thing on the front. Remove all the tape. Trim any main big tails that you see that might get stuck when you turn the bag right side out. Oh, this is stuck here. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but always test your materials and make sure. I don't usually have any issues with this 3M tape, but always double check whatever you're on, because I have had it a few times where it has lifted the paint on the painted kind of vinyls or printed vinyls. I don't know if they're painted or printed, whatever they are, but it has lifted some of it sometimes. So be very careful. So I try to keep it in the seam allowance whenever I can and not straight on the vinyl, but that's not always a possibility. Now you don't want to cut your little arms off, your straps. So, all right, now we got that. Let's remove this out of the way and get all the tear away out, or the cut away or wash away, whatever you're using. So this stuff is really lightweight. I'm not sure I would trust it for a lot of heavy satin stitching unless you do what I did, but it does seem to be tearing easily. So again, this is the Easy Tear from Sulky. So it's working great for this bag. We'll see what it looks like when we finish turning it from the other side. Probably going to have to use a lighter to kind of melt the edges. Okay, so now get your scissors out, and you want to trim away. You want to leave an opening here, which I can't because I messed it up, but it's just barely enough. So normally you would want to leave the seam allowance here 1/2 inch, and then the rest you can just trim to 1/4 inch, because it's easier if you have a little bit more seam allowance to turn the bag to close it. So we're going to pretend we left 1/2 inch there. You don't need the back of it to be that long though, so fold this down and cut the exterior material across this like that, okay? And then just go ahead and make sure you don't cut into your strap connectors wherever they are. This is the side that doesn't have the strap connector, so we can go ahead and just trim that 1/4 inch. And then how I like to do the corners is I like to taper them a little bit. I don't just cut a 45-degree angle across, I taper them like this. Now this side, we have our strap connector there. We don't want to cut that off, so if you fold this towards you and then come in behind and start doing your seam allowance, make sure you're getting about 1/4 inch there. Flip it over to this side and come in, fold it towards you, and the same thing. Go ahead and get your seam allowance. Hold this out of your way until it's out of the way, and then trim it to your 1/4 inch. That way you leave that little strap connector a little long, so it doesn't, when you're pulling on your bag and you're going jingly jangly with it, it doesn't damage it. I'm sorry, it doesn't pull it out of the seam. Trim those little corners, and now let's do this last little corner. Okay, and put all this in the bin. And now this is where you're going to need your glue and your clips. I'm going to turn this bag, reach through there, and it's usually helpful to finger press this down first before you turn it on both sides, so you have a nice seam to turn against. But I left mine so tight I don't even know if I'm going to be able to glue it closed. Then just start kind of pushing one of the corners through, And this is a small bag, so it's a small hole. But I almost always do my first bag of any style with vinyl, so I know how it works. If I need to make some modifications to the digitizing to support vinyl, because I would say probably, as far as I know, maybe at least half, if not more, of my people who like my bags do vinyl. Okay. It's so weird talking to myself, but I'm pretending I'm talking to you guys, and you guys being anybody who's watching this video. This whole social media kind of relationship thing is so weird. I don't know how else to do it, but I mean, this is how they did it in the olden days. And who remembers Nancy? Sewing with Nancy Neiman. She was amazing. We lost so much in the sewing world when we lost her. But I grew up with her and Alex Anderson and Fons and Porter when I got really big into quilting. Okay, so, and that's what they did. They talked to the TV screen, to the monitor, like as if they were talking to the user right in front of them. All right. So there we go. So now we turn this out. And just try and push the corners out as much as you can from before you close the lining. It just makes it easier down the road. Okay, now I always close the lining so that the single side of the lining is towards me, closest to my body, and this is farthest away from me. You can do it however you do yours. But if you've never done one before and you're following me, this is how I do it. You can also use double stick permanent tape. I prefer not to use that because I find the kind that you don't iron doesn't hold well with these thick seams. And then the kind you do iron, I feel it makes the seam really dense and thick. So I'm going ahead and just gluing across that whole thing because it's so small. And then pull the other piece of the lining up into that glue. It's a little fidgety. Now, the glue doesn't bother my skin, but I've been trying to give this, and I just got it all on me. Well, glue doesn't bother me, but it might bother you. So if you're sensitive to stuff like glue, then this is a really small little seam. You can go ahead and get your a sewing box out. I'm sure everybody has a sewing box somewhere, even if it's your grandma's old cookie bit tin. Get your sewing box out and just do a couple of quick little whip stitches with a needle and thread. It's a just tiny little hole, especially this size. Or you can find some other kind of glue that doesn't bother you, or use one of the tapes, as I mentioned already. Okay, so always put your glue cap on this as soon as you can when you're done, because it will come out the top. Okay, so that usually just takes about a minute to set up. And so you can see here, we already have our bag is coming apart. So again, this is a really tight bag, so you definitely want to use tear away or wash away with it. I would be a little concerned about using poly mesh on this tiny little one. Okay, it should be set up enough now, I think. It's really fast. It takes about 24 hours to fully cure, but you can see it's not coming apart. So now we can turn the bag. Oops, let's remove this little tape for our little tag. Hey, look at that. We've got it almost perfect. And now let's turn our bag out to the right side. So go ahead and open up. Push this all the way out. Okay, and then when you get to the corner here, go ahead and try and finger press that seam so it's nice and smooth, like that. But you want to push these little corners out to form that little, as we all know, that cute little triangle that gets formed from this method of creating a box bottom, a flat bottom. There's that side. And then come over here to this side and just kind of work the material out of that seam so you get that little triangle. It should be even. And if you need to use your little turning device to get in there and do it, go ahead. You want to push that, all that extra vinyl out of that seam and push it in, and it'll pop into that little triangle looking figure. I'm having trouble with this side. Oh, there was some stabilizer holding it together. Oh, that was weird. Okay, so then just kind of work it. If you pulled it too much like I just did, just kind of work it around so it's nice and straight. Okay. And I feel that tearaway in there. Did I just like tear the lining open? No, it's the tearaway actually needed to be torn away on the other side of this, but I felt it inside tearing away. That's interesting. So just keep working it until you got it. And now remove all your glue, your tape here, holding the straps down. Oops, this one got into the seam allowance. Oops, I messed that up. Should have removed that earlier. All right, and now just work these little corners out in the back, because since we top stitched, we got a tiny little pleat there. Try and push them into the seam allowance with your pointing device like this, and just make them look a little nicer. If you've done the zippers like this, you know what I'm talking about. But you can totally choose not to top stitch this, and you won't get that little flip in the sides. But I think I'm okay with it. So the drawback to this style of bag is, since you're not doing it on a regular sewing machine, it's not going to look exactly, the back is going to be slightly bigger than the front, but it's okay. So there we go. Here's our cute little bag, and with our little lobster clasp. So you can go ahead and put a magnet clasp on it or a cam stamp button, and when you do that, you can kind of work this down so it's even and you don't see it as much. I would recommend not top stitching the back on this one. If you want to, you can do it at the end, because that little lip is preventing it from going down even farther. It's making it stand out, but I wanted to do it to show you what it would look like. But once it's hanging on your bag, I don't think people are going to notice as much. And I think it'll hold a card. Yeah, so it'll be a cute little card holder. Hold on one second, let me be right back. I wanted to grab these little fasteners I have not used yet, but I bought. I saw them when I was looking on AliExpress, and they clip onto your bag like this, and then you crimp them down, and then they're just little magnets that come together. So I thought that would be so awesome for these small bags, the small tote bags. You'll see the black on there, but you know, just center it on there, and then you have a little magnetic closure on it. So just wanted to show you those real quick. I don't know where my pliers are right now, so I can't crimp mine down, and I'm pushing my fingers and it's very tight. But anyway, how cute is that? These ones are 14 by 3 millimeter bronze magnetic buckle iron clip. Let me put this up here, so if you want to search for AliExpress, can you see that? I don't know if you can even see that. Okay, guys, but that's all she wrote. Let me get those out of the way for now. I can show you the cute little bag, and let's straighten her out again. Oops, I got a piece of tape on her up here, glue or something. How cute is that? So cute. Thanks, guys.